I didn't hear her come in. I only realized she was there when I felt it, that subtle pull in the air. You know that strange weight you feel when someone's watching you? Not aggressively, not even intentionally. Just present. Watching. Quiet. Still. Not judging. Just lingering. It was like the air shifted around me. I didn't turn my head. I didn't breathe too loud. I just stayed frozen, suddenly hyper-aware of everything, my body, the blanket over my lap, the way the light flickered on the screen in front of me. I thought I was alone. I was alone, until I wasn't. And then, without a word, she walked in and sat down beside me. Not across from me. Not at the end of the couch. Right next to me. Too close. Closer than she ever had before. Closer than felt normal for a stepmother. I didn't look at her. I couldn't. But I felt the warmth of her arm just inches from mine. The soft rustle of her robe. The faint scent of something floral and familiar. And that quiet tension, so thick, so loud, it buzzed inside my chest like a trapped bee. The movie kept playing. But the movie didn't matter anymore. She hadn't said anything yet. She didn't have to. Because something in me shifted. Now, before we dive in, if this isn't your first time here at Passionate Tales Unfold, welcome back. You already know how we do things here: slow burns, soft edges, deep feelings. Stories that sit with you long after they're over. But if this is your first time, then buckle in. Because what happened that night, on that couch, with the sound of rain on the windows and that movie flickering between us, it wasn't just unexpected. It was unforgettable. And I still don't know how I feel about it. But I'm going to tell you everything. Just stay with me. It was a rainy Sunday, and the house felt quieter than usual. Not silent, exactly, just still. The kind of quiet that wraps itself around you. Not peaceful, not eerie, just heavy. Like the house was holding its breath. Outside, the rain tapped against the windows like fingers trying to get in. The sky was the color of wet ash, and the whole place smelled faintly of dust, fabric softener, and the remnants of last night's dinner. My dad had gone upstairs a while ago, said something about catching up on emails. I knew that meant I had the downstairs to myself for a while. Or I thought I did. I was curled up on the living room couch, legs tucked under a blanket that was a little too warm, watching a movie I probably shouldn't have been watching. You know the kind, one of those foreign indie films that feels like poetry and tension stitched together. Slow. Brooding. Filled with glances that lasted a second too long. Scenes that made you feel things before you even understood what was happening. There wasn't a single loud moment. Just the kind of silence that lingers in the spaces between people who are about to cross a line. The light from the screen kept flickering, throwing long shadows across the floor and up the walls, dancing over the picture frames and shelves. I remember the way it reflected off the glass coffee table, the way the flicker of a cigarette on screen almost felt like it was right there in the room with me. I wasn't paying attention to the plot anymore. My mind had wandered. Maybe because the movie was a little too intimate. Or maybe because I was feeling a little too alone. A little too open. And not in a good way. I had a bowl of popcorn sitting on my lap, but I hadn't touched it in a while. My fingers were still resting inside it, cold and idle, like they forgot what they were supposed to be doing. And then I heard it. The faintest shift. The creak of that one old floorboard near the hallway always gives itself away, no matter how soft you step. That familiar sound sliced through the stillness like a whisper across bare skin. I didn't turn around. I don't know why. Maybe I was embarrassed. Maybe I thought it was my dad, and I didn't want to explain what I was watching. Or maybe some part of me already knew who it was. Because her presence didn't feel abrupt. It felt intentional. The air changed. I know that sounds dramatic, but it did. You know how, sometimes, someone walks into a room and doesn't say a word, but your whole body reacts like you're standing under a spotlight? That was this. The back of my neck got warm. My jaw tensed. I could feel her standing there, just out of sight. Waiting. And not because she didn't know what to say, but because she didn't have to say anything at all. I could hear the soft shuffle of her slippers against the rug. The way fabric whispered when she shifted her weight. The quiet patience of someone who knew the silence was doing the heavy lifting. My stepmother had this presence. Always did. Gentle but solid. Like someone who never raised their voice because they never needed to. And in that moment she didn't need to. She just let me sit there, frozen, pretending to still be watching a movie that had stopped mattering the second she stepped into the room. I felt her move closer. Not with footsteps, just with energy. That slow, deliberate kind of approach you feel before you see. My breath got shallow. My hands clenched the popcorn bowl a little too tightly. My eyes stayed locked on the screen, but I wasn't seeing it anymore. I was watching the reflection of her shape in the glass. That outline. That nearness. And still she didn't say a word. But somehow, everything inside me started shifting. Quietly. Reluctantly. Like I was standing at the edge of something I didn't ask for, but couldn't bring myself to walk away from either. She didn't say anything at first. Just stood there. Quiet. Present. Like a question left hanging in the air. I didn't need to look behind me to know it was her. I could feel it, the weight of her gaze. The warmth of her eyes tracing the back of my neck. Not sharp. Not suspicious. Just aware. She always looked at people like she was seeing the parts they didn't know how to show. And me? I suddenly felt exposed. Not because of the movie. Not even because of her. But because something in me had opened without my permission. The silence stretched. The rain outside was the only sound, soft and steady like a second heartbeat. The movie kept playing, but it was nothing but background noise now. Just flickers of light across the room. Then she finally spoke. Softly. What are you watching? It was simple. Casual. But there was something in her voice like she already knew it wasn't just any movie. Like she wasn't asking about the title, she was asking about me. About why this film, on this night, with that expression on my face. I swallowed. My throat was dry. My mouth moved before my brain could catch up. Just a movie, I said. It came out small. Thin. My voice cracked halfway through. I felt like I'd been caught, but not in trouble. More like I'd been seen. And honestly I didn't know which felt more terrifying. I still didn't turn around. I couldn't. If I had, I think I would have unraveled right there. The way she said it, the way her tone wrapped around me, it didn't feel like a casual check-in. It felt like a doorway. And I was standing right on the edge. She walked forward slowly. No rush. No noise. Just the soft sound of her robe brushing her legs, the almost inaudible pad of her slippers across the rug. She reached the side of the couch, right beside me, and then she didn't walk away. She didn't ask if I was okay. She didn't ask if I wanted space. Instead, she asked. Mind if I join you? 6 words. That's all it took. And suddenly, everything shifted. The air. The temperature. My pulse. The space between us. All of it, rippling quietly like someone had dropped a stone into still water. My heart skipped. I didn't know what to say. Did I mind? No. That wasn't the problem. The problem was how badly I didn't. I didn't say yes. I didn't even nod. I just moved over. Not a lot. Just a few inches. Enough for her to sit. Enough to say yes without actually saying it. She eased down beside me like she belonged there. Like it was the most natural thing in the world. And for a second, maybe it was. We sat there, side by side, in that dimly lit room, with the glow of the TV painting slow-moving shadows over our faces. I didn't dare look at her. But I felt her. Her warmth. Her breath. The gentle curve of her knee brushing mine when she crossed her legs. That floral scent again, soft and clean and so close. She didn't speak again. She didn't have to. Because something between us had already been spoken. Unsaid, maybe. But not unfell. She sat close. Not close enough to touch. But close enough that I felt her. The kind of closeness where every part of your body goes on alert. Not because you're in danger but because something sacred just walked in and sat next to you. Her thigh didn't press against mine, but it hovered there. Barely an inch between us. That kind of space that suddenly feels too small to ignore. Like air that's too thick, charged with something you don't have a name for yet. The rain was still falling outside, but I wasn't hearing it the same way anymore. It was slower now. Or maybe my mind was. The tapping against the window felt like a countdown. Each drop louder than it should have been. The movie played on. Same flickering shadows. Same muffled, foreign dialogue. But I wasn't watching anymore. I was elsewhere. Right there on the couch, but in some emotional in-between. A place where you're not sure if you're imagining the moment, or if you're just too scared to name it. Her perfume drifted toward me, like it had been waiting for the silence to deliver it. Light. Floral. But grounded. Something soft with an edge underneath. Like jasmine layered over sandalwood. Feminine, but not sweet. Like her. Familiar, but every time I breathed it in, it made my heart ache in a way I couldn't explain. I became painfully aware of my body. The way my arm rested too stiffly on the couch cushion. The way my ankle was tucked beneath me, awkwardly, suddenly too warm under the blanket. The way my breath had shortened without me noticing. And her body was like a magnet I was trying not to lean toward. She didn't speak. Didn't ask what the movie was about again. Didn't even pretend to be watching. She just leaned back against the cushions, slow, like this was her space too. Like this was normal. But when she crossed her legs, her knee brushed mine. Just barely. A soft graze. Skin to skin. And my entire nervous system lit up. I didn't move away. I didn't even flinch. I just sat there, trying to convince myself that it didn't mean anything. That it was accidental. That maybe she hadn't even noticed. But the way she shifted her weight afterward, the way her arm now lightly rested on the back of the couch, just behind my shoulder, it did mean something. Even if it wasn't fully spoken, it was there. In the air between us. Dense. Heavy with something unsaid. I could hear the quiet rustle of her breathing. Slow. Unhurried. Comfortable. Like she wasn't the least bit unsure. Meanwhile, I was sitting there, heart beating faster than I wanted, trying not to wonder what she was thinking. Trying harder not to wonder what it would feel like if she reached out. Just reached. Even a little. The room felt smaller. Not physically. Emotionally. Like everything outside that couch had disappeared. There was no hallway. No upstairs. No clock ticking behind us. Just the two of us. Sitting too close. Saying nothing. And every second that passed pulled me deeper. The house wasn't empty. That's the part that made everything feel sharper. My father was upstairs. Probably asleep. His usual weekend routine: long nap, late dinner, maybe a scotch in his favorite chair before bed. I could almost hear the faint hum of the ceiling fan from their bedroom, if I listened closely enough. Life hadn't stopped. It had only paused. Down here, in this pocket of low light and rising warmth, time felt different. Slower. Stretched. Like the seconds were draped in velvet. And in that stretch, I started noticing things. Little things. Like the way she kept toying with the hem of her robe. Just her fingertips brushing it, over and over again, like a rhythm she wasn't aware of. Like her body had more to say than her mouth would dare speak. She didn't fidget nervously. She didn't glance upstairs or pretend to be distracted. She was still. Fully present. Like she'd stepped inside a moment and decided to stay there. I kept glancing sideways at her. Not full looks. Just those half-second peeks that feel like confessions. My eyes tracing the shape of her cheek, the gentle slope of her collarbone where her robe had shifted open just a little. She made no effort to pull it closed. And even though she didn't look at me, I knew she felt my gaze. Because her breath deepened. Just barely. Just enough. The room pulsed with something unspoken. Something neither of us had a name for, or maybe we did, but we didn't dare say it aloud. Not yet. It wasn't fear. It wasn't guilt. It was possibility. The kind that lives between two people who haven't crossed a line, but have definitely found it. Then it happened. A scene came on screen. Not explicit. Not loud or flashy. Just two people, eyes locked, breath shared, closing the space between them inch by inch. Fingers brushing. Mouths hovering. That agonizing closeness before anything happens, when everything already has. I stopped breathing. I couldn't even pretend to look away. She didn't either. The only sound was the rain and the slow exhale of those two lovers on the screen. And us mirroring them in silence. Then, without turning her head, she whispered. Interesting choice of film. My stomach dropped. But not from shame. From how careful her voice was. How unjudging. There was a smile tucked beneath her words. Not mocking, more like curious. I opened my mouth to respond. Nothing came out. I didn't know what to say. I wasn't sure there was a right thing to say. So I just shrugged a little. Managed a small laugh that barely left my throat. I didn't know it would be like this, I finally murmured. She hummed. Not in disbelief. Just acknowledgement. Then she crossed her legs again, slowly, and in doing so, her foot brushed against mine. A soft touch. Not deliberate. But not exactly accidental, either. She still didn't look at me. But I could feel her awareness like a tide rolling in. I shifted on the couch, just a little. Suddenly the fabric of my clothes felt too tight. Too warm. My skin was alive in ways I hadn't felt in ages. Or maybe ever. And somewhere upstairs, the ceiling creaked faintly. A reminder. A heartbeat from another world. One that still existed. Just not here. Not in this moment. Not between these four walls. Not in this glowing room where her scent clung to the air and the silence between us said far more than words ever could. The movie kept playing. But the real story was happening right beside me. I shifted slightly. Just enough to adjust the blanket over my legs. Or at least that's what I told myself. But my knee it brushed against hers. It was quick, barely a second, but electric. I meant to pull back. I really did. But I didn't. Not because I was frozen. Not out of fear. But because in that moment I didn't want to. And neither did she. She didn't flinch. She didn't stiffen or shift away. In fact, I know, she pressed just the tiniest bit closer. Barely noticeable. But enough. Enough that the air between us felt different. Thicker. Charged. The rain outside had softened to a hush, like the sky itself was holding its breath. And then she looked at me. For the first time since she sat down, she really looked at me. Not with surprise. Not even with hesitation. Just with something deep and unreadable behind her eyes. It wasn't a stare. It wasn't invasive. It was permission. 1 second. Maybe 2. But I felt it everywhere, in my spine, in my throat, in the sudden quiet of my thoughts. She looked away. Then she reached for the popcorn bowl resting in my lap. Slowly. Deliberately. Her fingers grazed mine. Soft. Warm. Intentional. She didn't grab a handful. Didn't rush. Her hand lingered longer than necessary. I could feel the pads of her fingers brushing against the side of my hand, subtle, but unmistakable. We were no longer pretending this was just a shared movie. This was something else. Something far more fragile. She pulled back with a few kernels of popcorn and brought one to her lips. Her mouth moved slowly. She chewed like the act had weight, like the silence between us was asking her to be careful with it. I swallowed hard. Then, without looking at me again, she spoke. Soft. Barely above a whisper. You can still get up and go to your room, you know. My whole body stilled. She said it like it wasn't a dare. Not a challenge. Not even a suggestion, really. Just a door left open. A way out. But the thing is, I didn't want the door. I didn't want to move. Couldn't, even if I tried. My chest felt tight, not in a painful way, but in that way you feel right before something happens. Something that can't be undone. I stared at the TV, but I couldn't have told you what scene we were on. Because my whole world had shrunk down to the space between us. To the weight of her words, and the silence that followed them. I didn't say a word. I didn't nod. I didn't move. And she didn't ask again. She didn't need to. Because something passed between us in that quiet. Something real. Mutual. Not forced. Not faked. Just felt. She shifted slightly then, turning her body toward me just a bit. Her knee pressed fully against mine now. Skin on skin. It was the lightest pressure, but it felt seismic. I breathed in through my nose, slow and shaky. My hands were still under the blanket, clenched into themselves. I don't even remember making a choice in that moment. It didn't feel like a decision. It felt like gravity. Like falling, but softly. She exhaled. And in that breath, I heard everything she wasn't saying. Everything I wasn't ready to say, either. But the silence it understood. And so did she. The movie had faded into the background. Not completely gone, just like a low hum, a distant melody you barely notice until everything else quiets down. Dialogue and music floated through the room, but they didn't matter anymore. Because the real story, our story, was here. Right between us. She turned slightly toward me. Slowly. Like she was measuring the air, the space, the moment itself. Her hand lifted, warm and steady. It settled gently on mine. Not gripping. Not demanding. Just grounding. Like a lifeline tossed quietly in a sea of uncertainty. My breath caught in my throat. I looked at her. Really looked. For the first time, I saw all the layers beneath her calm. Her eyes. They were sad. Soft. And something else, curious, maybe. Or waiting. Like she was holding a secret, but unsure if she wanted to share it. She didn't move in. She didn't kiss me. Not yet. But she held my hand in both of hers. Tenderly. Her thumb traced slow circles over my knuckles. A confession, wordless and raw, spoken in touch. A delicate admission that said everything and nothing at once. My heart thudded against my ribs. Not from fear. Not from guilt. From something far deeper. From being seen. Truly seen. Like for once, I wasn't hiding behind walls or pretending. Like the person I was inside mattered. She stayed there, holding my hand. No words. No promises. Just presence. And in that stillness, I felt something shift. The air between us thickened, charged with possibility. The line we hadn't crossed yet was waiting. But it wasn't pressure. It was quiet understanding. The kind of connection that's built on trust, not impulse. My skin tingled where her fingers brushed. Electric and soothing all at once. I could almost hear my own heartbeat. Steady, loud, real. She whispered, just barely. "Are you okay?" Simple words. But heavy with care. I nodded slowly. I couldn't speak. I didn't want to break the moment. Instead, I squeezed her hand gently. And in that squeeze was everything I felt but couldn't say. Fear. Hope. Confusion. Longing. And the wild, messy ache of wanting something I wasn't supposed to want. Time stretched out. Each second a slow dance between two people on the edge. Not sure what would come next. But not afraid anymore. Because in that moment, I wasn't alone. She was right there. Holding my hand. Holding me. And that was enough. For now. We sat like that, in stillness. No movement except for her thumb, tracing slow, absent circles on the back of my hand. The kind of touch that doesn't demand anything, just is. Her head shifted. Softly. Gently. It leaned against mine. A quiet weight. A fragile connection. I exhaled deep, full, like I hadn't breathed properly in years. It wasn't the kind of breath you take when you're running or scared. This was a breath of relief. Of surrender. The moment wasn't about desire anymore. Not in the way you think. It was something else. Tender. Fragile. Like a secret space where neither of us had to explain why we stayed. Where words could fall away and leave only the truth. And for the first time, I didn't feel like a child around her. Or a stranger. Or someone who needed to hide behind silence or sarcasm. I felt seen. Not just with my eyes. But with something deeper. Something real. Like I was finally someone she noticed. Someone who mattered. The rain outside had softened to a whisper now. Inside, the room felt warmer. Safer. Her voice broke the silence. Soft. Almost uncertain. You remind me of someone I used to be. I didn't know what that meant. Or why she said it then. But her words hung in the air. Like a fragile promise. Like a memory folded inside a sigh. And even though I didn't understand it fully, I knew I would remember it forever. That moment. That feeling. The way her thumb kept moving, the way her head rested lightly against mine, and how for once. I didn't have to pretend. I didn't have to be anything but myself. And that was everything. More than I ever expected. More than I thought I deserved. In that quiet, slow moment, something inside me shifted. Something tender, vulnerable, and unspoken. A secret between us. Waiting to be discovered. But for now. Just this. Just us. And the soft, steady rhythm of a breath finally coming home. The credits rolled. Slowly, quietly. Neither of us moved. The room felt heavy, like it was holding its breath with me. Eventually, she stood. Smoothing her robe with slow, careful fingers. She came back just long enough to press a kiss on the top of my head. Soft. Tender. Nothing more. No promises. No explanations. Just that quiet, unexpected moment. Then she walked away. Without looking back. I stayed where I was. Hands still warm from hers. Chest hollow and full at the same time. It's strange how nothing really happened. And yet, everything did. Something inside me had shifted. I wasn't the same person who'd curled up on that couch just hours ago. Not exactly. And I've never watched movies the same way again. Because sometimes, it's not the story on the screen that stays with you. It's the moments between the lines. The unspoken words. The touch you didn't expect. And the way one small night can change everything. Some moments don't need to be named to be remembered. They settle quietly inside you, like a secret you carry but don't speak aloud. What do you think she meant about who I reminded her of? I've thought about it a lot, about the parts of ourselves we see in others, and the parts we hide. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. If something stirred in that stillness, if you felt the weight of unspoken things between two people. Make sure to subscribe to Passionate Tales Unfold. Because here, we tell stories that linger. Stories that touch the quiet parts of the heart, where longing and truth meet. Thank you for spending this hour with me. For sitting in the silence and the shadows. For sharing this fragile moment. Until next time, take care of yourself. And remember, sometimes, being seen is the most powerful thing there is.